I join my colleague, Senator Lautenberg, and the others who have come to the floor this afternoon to talk about the importance of getting help for people who have been hit by disasters. A little more than 2 weeks ago, Tropical Storm Irene came barreling through New Hampshire, just as she came barreling through Vermont and New York and New Jersey and North Carolina and so many other states along the East Coast. The storm dumped as much as 8 inches of rain in parts of New Hampshire, and the damage to property and infrastructure, especially in the northern part of our state, was significant. The surging waters and high winds destroyed roads and bridges, damaged thousands of homes, left nearly 200,000 without power, devastated businesses, and ruined crops. Now, while the devastation was terrible, I want to begin by commending those dedicated first responders and emergency personnel who kept our residents safe and well-informed throughout the storm. I'm also grateful for the tireless work of road crews, utility workers, and volunteers from across New Hampshire who began helping families and communities rebuild just as soon as the storm passed. Their hard work and community spirit are deeply appreciated. For many of the towns who were hit by Irene, this is the 3rd major flooding event of the year. It's the 7th in the last 2 years. And these have been devastating floods. I have a picture here of the town of Plymouth, a beautiful community in northern New Hampshire where Plymouth State University is. And what we can see barely in this section of the picture is the new ice hockey arena for Plymouth State that was just completed about a year ago. Beautiful state-of-the-art arena that unfortunately got flooded by these floodwaters. And of course, we can see other damage to the town. Many of the homeowners in the community of Conway, on the other side of the state, those people who suffered some of the worst damage are elderly and disabled. They're people who are living on fixed incomes who are least able to recover from this kind of disaster. Others affected by the disaster are families who are already struggling to cope with difficult economic circumstances. New Hampshire emergency response officials toured Conway today, and they talked to our office and told us about the plight of one young family of 3. The father, sadly, was laid off from his job just 3 days before the storm hit, and his wife, who stays at home and takes care of their 3-year-old, doesn't have a job outside the home. So with his layoff, they've lost their entire income, and now their home is so damaged that they're worried about being homeless. They have no money to rebuild. Without FEMA assistance, this family could indeed wind up homeless. Hundreds in the West Lebanon area, on the western part of the state across the river from Vermont, may be out of work for months. Peg Howard, who owns a boutique gift store in the area, told the Valley News, which is the newspaper that serves Lebanon, that she fears damage from Irene will put her out of business. As a small business owner, she has no parent corporation to help her recover, so assistance from FEMA and other federal programs may be her only option as she tries to rebuild her business. Peg and the hundreds of others in New Hampshire, the thousands across the country who have been devastated, are taxpayers, and this is their government. They help pay for it. Their tax dollars help fund our government, including FEMA. They have the right to expect that FEMA will be there when they need help. It's not only sad, but it's an outrage that some members of Congress would deny those people who have been so hard hit by Irene and so many other disasters this year. Members of Congress would deny them help in their time of need. And for no good reason. The reason is pure partisan politics. It's plain and simple. Even in the best of circumstances, the costs of Irene would be a significant burden for New Hampshire to shoulder alone. Thankfully, President Obama quickly granted Governor Lynch's request for a major disaster declaration. A number of federal agencies, including FEMA, are now on the ground providing essential assistance as we begin to restore our state's homes, businesses, roads, and utilities. But New Hampshire's hardly alone in the need for assistance after Hurricane Irene, and other parts of the country are still rebuilding from disasters earlier this year, such as the devastating tornado in Joplin, Missouri. Soon, FEMA's Disaster Relief Fund, as we've already heard this afternoon, which was already running low prior to the storm, will no longer have the resources needed to continue meeting recovery needs. In the last 2 weeks, FEMA has spent $300 million providing relief to states hit by Hurricane Irene. Less than $500 million remains, which may not be enough to see us through the end of the month. New Hampshire and the other states still recovering from disasters would be on their own if that happens. We can't let that happen. We must act quickly to provide FEMA with the resources it needs to help our citizens and our towns recover. In northern New England, we have a limited window to rebuild before the onset of winter brings our construction season to a stop. What's more, in New Hampshire, fall is a critical season for our tourism industry, as thousands of visitors come to take in the beautiful fall foliage. We need to immediately rebuild the bridges that Irene destroyed, such as this one that's pictured in Hart's location. And you can see in another couple of weeks, this beautiful mountain in the background with all of the green foliage will be turning all sorts of colors because of the fall foliage. And if we can't fix this road and bridges and the number of other places in New Hampshire, we won't be able to have a tourist season that can bring people to the state, that can help those people whose jobs depend on that tourism industry. Any delay in FEMA assistance over the next few weeks could have a serious effect on recovery efforts and the hundreds of businesses and their employees who depend on the tourism industry. You know, Mr. President, I know you agree with me and with the other senators who have come to the floor this afternoon who believe that natural disasters should be beyond politics and beyond partisanship. The people hurting all across this country aren't Democrats or Republicans or independents. They're citizens, they're taxpayers. Getting them the help that they need demands bipartisan cooperation. In the past, we've always been able to come together and get people the help they need. This time should be no different. I urge all of my colleagues in the Senate to work together to address this emergency, to provide FEMA the resources it needs to carry out its mission. This has an immediate, real impact on so many Americans, and we can't delay. Thank you very much, Mr. President. I yield the floor.